75, this is page 8, number 75. It says to find the sales necessary to break even for this cost function and this revenue function. So we're going to have to put those into our calculator. This isn't something we want to solve without a calculator. It's too difficult. So we're going to go to y equals, I'm going to put the first one in, 5.5 radical x, and then plus 10,000. Okay, so I got that in. Now I'm going to go down to y2. Did I get this in right? Yeah, I know. I should have just deleted it first. It's a pain if you don't delete it first. Okay. And then in our y2, delete it first, whatever's in there, and I'm going to put in 3.29x. Did I not delete that? There. Oh, 3.29x. Okay, so I have these two in. I'm going to do a zoom standard, but if you notice, a zoom standard does not result in anything. I'm not seeing, there's the line, but I'm not seeing this at all. This one is 5.5 radical x plus 10,000. If I plug in 0 for x, I'm going to get an answer of 10,000 on this. So I know this function is really far up there. So I want to make my y max maybe like 30,000 because I know it's starting off at 10,000. Let's see what happens now. So there's our line, 3.29x. We're still not seeing that function. So let's take this out further. Let's make it go out to like 3,000. See what happens. There's our line, or actually that's our square root function. Here's our line. All right, it's out here even further. And guys, this just takes persistence. A lot of times people say, you know, why do I need to take calculus if I'm not even going to do that for my job? I'm not going to be an engineer or something. A lot of occupations, they like to see that you've taken calculus because it shows that you have persistence. Things like this, topics like this, it's not like there's some just way you can just type this in and automatically get it the first time. You got to be persistent. You got to try and change that window over and over until you get something that actually works. Now we can solve the problem. We can find out where is the cost equal to the revenue. To do that, I go to second trace, calculate that intersection point. I have to be close to it. I hit enter, 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 and there it is. So 3,133 units, that's going to be what's going to be the break-even point. Now, if you have a business, is that all you want to do, break even? No, no, no. You want your revenue to be higher. So if I go to this, and I can see this is my cost function, so I don't want that to be higher. See how back here, my cost function is higher, but here, the other one, let me do trace. If I arrow down, this is my revenue function. So I want to be down here. I want to produce this many units because that's where my revenue starts beating out my cost function. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, so our answer there again, that was 3,133. 77, modeling data. Did you guys need to see this one too? Okay. So this is one, again, it has this little symbol. They're telling us to use our graphing calculator. I have to put in my stats, so I go to Stat Edit, clear out what I've got. Actually, I've got these in here, so I'm not going to clear them. I'm just going to go from here. So I went 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. I put in all my Y values. I always want to double check and make sure I have the same number of points in here. Otherwise, it's going to give me a dimension error. I have to set up my window. My X's are going from 0 to 30. My Y's are going from like 0 to 168 is the highest I see. I'll go to 180. Again, this one I can see my data, so I can adjust my points. The reason I'm not seeing my points right now is because I didn't turn on my stat plots. I'm seeing that old line from that other problem. I should delete those. I don't want to see those. I want to turn on my stat plots by highlighting it and pushing enter. And now when I hit graph, all I'm going to see is my points because I haven't made up my line yet. To make up my line, I go to Stat, Calculate. They tell me it's actually quadratic. It almost looks linear when I looked at the points, but they tell me it's quadratic. So I'm going to go to quadratic, and then I can come down here to calculate, and here it is. And I can write that down and then put it into y equals. I'm going to show you something different though I haven't shown you yet. I can have the calculator put that in for me by doing this. Stat, calculate, the quadratic regression. That's what I did just a minute ago. But now I'm going to tell it to store it. Where do I want to store it? Where do I want it to go into? Y1. So I go to vars for variables. I go over to y variables, because that's where y1 is going to be, and it's a function. So I just push enter, and I want it to go into y1. Now when I do this calculate, it's going to go in there for me. I don't even have to type it in. It puts the exact equation in there for me, which is pretty nice because it's, goes out so many decimal points. And then I push graph, and there we go. That's the quadratic function. But the question we want to answer rather, use the model to predict the CPI for the year 2004. What's that going to be as far as our x's we used? Say it again. For 2004, it's going to be 34. So I'm going to do second trace calculated value when x is 34. And it gave me an error. It says it's invalid. I'm going to say go to that. It's telling me that this number's too big. Why is that number too big? My window. I have to make that window go out to at least 34. Now when I do second trace calculated value, takes it a minute to think. When x is 34, there it is. 187.1 would be our answer. All right, questions there? Okay. Let's go ahead. Any other questions on the homework?